High above the valleys of central Greece, cliffs erupt like stone sentinels, and balanced atop them, as if by miracle, sit the monasteries of Meteora. Built by monks fleeing war and persecution, these structures reach for heaven. Not just physically, but spiritually. This isn't just architecture, it's devotion carved into rock, yearning for peace. In Meteora, silence isn't empty, it's full. Every echo off, the cliffs hold centuries of whispered prayers. The monks came here for isolation, but found connection. With the divine, the earth, and their truest selves. Even the wind feels like it's part of some ancient chant, flowing through stone corridors older than memory. When the Ottoman Empire swept through Greece, monks scaled these cliffs. With nothing but ropes, faith, and desperation. They built havens of worship where enemies couldn't follow. And in doing so, created one of the most breathtaking sanctuaries on earth. To this day, each stone still echoes with the courage of that climb. Brother Elias wasn't always a monk. He once worked in Athens, noise, ambition, concrete life. But after a personal loss, he came to Meteora seeking silence. Here, he learned that peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the presence of purpose. And with each morning prayer, he felt a little more whole. Each monastery here holds relics, icons, and centuries of prayer. Yet it's not the gold or marble that stirs the soul, it's the simplicity. Wooden doors weathered by time. Walls blackened by incense. You don't visit Meteora to admire wealth. You come to feel something shift within you. How did they build them up there against the sky? Stone by stone, hauled by hand or pulleys. Every monastery was an act of impossible grace. Some call it madness, the monks call it faith. From a distance, these structures seem to float. But look closely, and you'll see the grit that made the miracle. No loud sermons here. Only the low hum of prayer and the occasional bell. Soft, slow, like a heartbeat in stone. Elias says those bells don't call you to believe. They remind you to listen. To the wind. To your breath. To whatever it is you've been running from. Tourists come expecting grandeur. And they find something quieter, deeper. No gift shops. Just candlelight, wind, and time that moves like honey. You climb hundreds of steps, and by the top, you're not just breathless from the height, but from the stillness it wraps around your soul. Elias often says, Meteora isn't about escaping the world. It's about standing between heaven and earth and not choosing. That's the power of this place. You don't reject life. You just rise above it long enough to remember what matters. No one leaves Meteora unchanged. Not because of the view, but because of what it sees in you. The stillness has a way of holding up a mirror and showing you the parts you've forgotten. Elias smiles when asked what he found here. He always replies. Not answers, just peace. Inside each monastery, ancient icons whisper forgotten stories, painted by hands that never signed their work. They were servants of something greater. Every flake of gold, every brushstroke, tells of centuries where time moved differently. In Meteora, faith isn't loud. It lingers in details, waiting for the quiet eye to notice. For the monks, walking is prayer. Each step, each breath, part of a sacred rhythm. Up and down the stone paths, again and again. Never rushed, never wasted. Elias once said, when you walk in silence, the world begins to speak. And on these cliffs, the wind listens too. Centuries ago, a single rope was all that linked these monasteries to the world. Monks were lifted in baskets, one at a time. Praying, the rope held. They believed God would let it snap. only when it had served its purpose. To modern minds, it sounds extreme. To them, it was just faith in action. Sunsets in Meteora move like incense smoke. Slow, weightless, eternal. Shadows stretch across the cliffs as if blessing them. Elias says the monasteries don't grow older. They deepen. And when the last light fades, the silence returns, not as emptiness, but as a holy pause. Visitors often ask, is it worth the climb? Elias smiles and points to the horizon. Because the view isn't just beauty. It's what that beauty does to your soul. Up here, even skeptics whisper. The cliffs don't demand belief. They invite surrender. Not to religion, but to stillness itself. These cliffs were never meant to host buildings. But belief makes impossible things seem natural. The rock faces were carved not by tools, but by vision, discipline, and years of silence. No architect could have designed this. Only devotion could have built it. Up here, you don't just see stone. You see persistence made visible. Elias once found a drawer of old letters. Notes from monks who never left Meteora. Messages never mailed. Confessions, fears, prayers. They weren't meant for the world, only for the silence that listened. Reading them felt like eavesdropping on eternity. And he swore. Some of the ink hadn't yet dried. When it rains in Meteora, the cliffs sing. Not loud, a whisper that rolls across the sky. Water trails down the monastery walls, like blessings in motion. Elias loves these days. He says the rain reminds him that even the strongest stones must learn to yield. Even grace needs erosion. Some say Meteora is fading, that it's only for tourists now. But Elias disagrees. He says these aren't ruins, they're reminders of what's possible when silence is sacred, of what survives when everything else fades. As long as one person listens here, Meteora still breathes. There's a story Elias tells of a cloud that refused to leave. It hovered above his monastery for days, as if heaven was waiting for someone to look up and listen. And when it finally drifted on, he says something left with it, a thought he'd been holding too long. In Meteora, light has a rhythm of its own. It creeps through arched windows, landing on altars like a blessing. Elias once said, "We don't light the chapel. We wait for the light to find us. And when it does, it feels less like sunlight and more like something divine remembering your name." People arrive carrying more than backpacks. They bring guilt, loss, questions. But Meteora doesn't fix them. It simply holds them, like a quiet friend who doesn't try to solve, just listens. Elias says the heaviest thing to carry up the cliffs isn't your body, it's your story. And somehow, they both feel lighter by the time you leave. One winter evening, the monastery bell rang without warning. No one had touched it. No wind had stirred. Elias walked outside and just listened. He said it wasn't a warning. It was a reminder that even when we fall silent, something greater keeps speaking. Faith doesn't always wait for permission to move. Meteora isn't just geography. It's a prayer someone once whispered and forgot to stop. Every stone, every silence, feels like a breath held by the earth itself. Elias believes this place was never built. It was revealed. And if you listen closely, you'll realize the prayer is still happening. And somehow, you're part of it. On his final morning at the cliffs, Elias didn't speak. He just sat, hands folded, watching the sky change. He said goodbye with his silence. Not to the monastery, but to the version of himself that first arrived here, broken. Peace didn't shout as he left. It whispered, "Now carry this stillness wherever you go." Leaving Meteora isn't a descent. It's a continuation of the prayer. Each step down, each glance back, carries a whisper of what you've found here. Elias often said, "The path down is just as holy as the one up, because that's where you begin to live what you've learned." Stillness is not the end. It's the seed. Years pass. Visitors change. But the cliffs remain, quiet, patient, knowing. They don't ask you to remember everything, only to carry something small. A breath, a pause, a choice to listen when the world gets too loud. Meteora doesn't need to be visited to be felt. It lives where stillness lives. If your soul is tired, if the noise of life has become too much, remember this. There's a place above the clouds, where silence speaks louder than words, where cliffs carry prayers, and light waits patiently for you to notice. That place is real. It's called Meteora, and it's still there, waiting for you to climb.